I was offered a major label deal in my 20s, and the circumstances around it were so counter to what felt right and instinctive to me as an artist and as a person. When I actually looked at the paperwork, I couldn't.
Grammy winner Andy Zula, Rod Stewart, the Goo Goo Dolls, Noah Cyrus, Pete Muller and the Kindred Souls, Susan Werner, Sarah Bareilles, Patti Smith, Paul Simon, Evanescence. The list goes on with...
I hope to impart to artists that everything is about managing expectations. That sounds like a dirty phrase. One of the healthiest, most positive, and kind of encouraging parts of the process of building a team and working with a team.
Do you believe in past lives?
I could go to the piano, just kind of fulfill what felt very early on like my destiny.
I've been seeing the gate and I've been trying to bash that fucker down or find a key or find someone who has a key and I could borrow it and open that gate. And you're seeing the human being on the other side of it.
Amplified.
Welcome back to Oberman Amplified, the podcast where we talk about music business, music, entertainment industry, mindset, and so much more. Bye-bye, gatekeepers. Hello, uplifting conversations. Thanks for hitting that like and subscribe button. I'm your host. Rachael Sage is here, our guest today. Oh my God, Rachael, welcome.
Hello. For a minute, it sounded like you were saying, I'm your host, Rachael Sage. And that would be so fun to just swap places one day, but I feel like I need to earn that trust.
I think, let's put it in the calendar for sometime in the future. I'll take a week off. You'll add something to your already completely jam-packed schedule.
Exactly.
A quick intro. Rachael Sage is an award-winning, Billboard-charting singer, songwriter, pianist, guitarist, visual artist, poet, philanthropist, and sequin collector. She has over 57,000 social media followers. She has performed all over the world, including Lilith Fair in New York in 1999. She has won prizes, including first place in the Great American Song Contest. She was an Out Music Award winner back in 2005 when it wasn't as trendy to be out. She has been involved and performed and won awards from Kerrville Folk Festival, Falcon Ridge Folk Festival, Rocky Mountain Folk Festival. And just this year in 2026, she took home an American Digital Design Award for the animated music video Kill the Clock by Carissa Johnson, which has over 155,000 views, I think, so far. So people are loving this video. And we met on the road most recently as she was touring in support of her most recent album, Canopy, which I will describe now. It was produced by Sage with Grammy-nominated engineer-bassist Mikhail Pivarov.
So well-spoken. Perfect.
Mikhail Pivarov, and was mixed by him and Grammy winner Andy Zula, both of whom brought out the best of the Sequins, which is Rachael Sage's band, including violinist Kelly Halloran, who plays with the Goo Goo Dolls, and also Noah Cyrus now.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and then we've got Andy Mack, who plays with Pete Muller and the Kindred Souls and has a great busking in Times Square during COVID story, if you ever get a chance to chat with Andy about it. And then Trina Hamlin, who's played with Susan Werner on harmonica, cellist Ward Williams, known for his work with Sarah Bareilles. Additional special guests include guitarist James Maestro, Ian Hunter, Jack Pizzarelli, Patti Smith, organist Rob Cutro of the Klezmatics, and cellist Dave Eggar, who plays with Paul Simon, Evanescence, the Goo Goo Dolls. The list goes on with Dave. And we've got clarinetist David Krakauer from John Zorn, percussionist Doug Yole, who plays with Howard Jones, upright bassist Carrie Brooks, Amy Ray, band, Amy Ray from the Indigo Girls, and someone else who is on the record includes Americana vocal duo Annalise and Ryan. Rachael Sage has toured with Ani DeFranco, Sarah McLachlan, Judy Collins, Howard Jones, Jamie Cullen, The Animals, Sonia Disappear Fear, Tom Goss, Avi Wisnia, and Kristen Ford.
I was just gonna say, freaking Kristen Ford.
Rachael also founded MPress Records, an award-winning independent record label celebrating 30 years this year, whose artists include the Grammy nominee Seth Gleer, Kay's Choice, Melissa Farrick, A Fragile Tomorrow, and so many more. It's an honor to have our first label president and
Oh my goodness.
incredibly talented singer-songwriter, multifaceted artist, Rachael Sage. Welcome.
Wow, that was a mouthful. That was a lot of things to read about someone. and to, like, do it with such panache. That was amazing. Thank you, Kristen. I'm honored to be here. I adore you. I admire you. I love your music. So this is really fun. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so glad to have you, and your enthusiasm to just jump in and get involved with projects and work with things that are outside the norm. I think that's probably why you're here in the infancy of this podcast and YouTube. And I wanted to talk to you about a quote. You said that I've been doing this music thing for 30 years, and with, any luck, I'll be doing it when I'm 80. So I'm just getting started. And
hmm
how do you not get burned out when you're working so hard and you're constantly making you just released your 15th album?
16, something like that. Yeah,
15th. Okay.
I don't know. I just, it's whatever Wikipedia tells me. I've never been good at math. But how do I keep from burning out? You know me pretty well, but your listeners are new to me most likely. So some of my on the road indulgences. You know that a little light vintage shopping goes a long way for me when I'm on the precipice of burnout. You know, there's nothing like, recovering from some dark global news, nothing like rebounding with a nice new set of like hot pink, gently used Converse, something like that definitely helps. But in all honesty, I mean, that I'm a very healthy person, that mental well being and physical health are paramount for me. So, whatever I'm doing, whether I'm on the road or whether I'm behind a desk, in one place in New York City or upstate New York, what I eat is absolutely crucial. Whether I'm getting up and moving around enough can make or break my mindset for the day or even, the week. I have to be really mindful of these things. I'm not a natural athlete and I always want to eat, the comfort food. And I also am a cancer thriver. So what that means for me is that, if I'm putting it in my body, I hope that it's good for me. And my days of being sort of edgy and indulgent and drinking too much and, the occasional other enjoyment are it's pretty much behind me. So music itself is the high for me. Music itself is my joy and the thing that's most precious to me. And that's just what I cling to, all the time.
Wow. That's amazing. I did want to ask about, your mindset pre and post the
hmm
cancer. So glad that you're on the other side of that and you do have
Thank
some
you.
music about that, and you've raised a lot of funds and gotten celebrities involved in web streams to raise awareness and money, and then yourself trying to practice what you preach in terms of, yeah, eating clean, trying to get enough rest.
Those are the words I was
Like,
looking for. Eat and
yeah.
clean.
But, yeah, what do you think was the biggest shift? And, um, yeah, any
Gratitude.
advice that you would have given
Yeah.
yourself if you had a time machine before you got sick to be like, "Hey, can you make these changes?"
It sounds so cliche. I think I took a lot for granted before. And I like to think I have always been a, moderately grateful, self aware person. But I think until you've been on the other side of an illness that is threatening to take away a lot of the things you enjoy doing that kind of define who you are and how you like to be in the world. Until you've experienced that, which I hope that most people never do, but until you have, it is hard to understand, that feeling like you've survived a plane crash or something. And then you get out of it and you look around and things that you thought were just normal and no big deal are suddenly precious and, spirit altering and just feel transformational really. And for me, I also was unfortunately in an abusive relationship at the same time that I was going through my cancer. So for anyone out there listening who just is going through anything that's really difficult, when you're able to find the strength to get through that and put it behind you, and not if, but when, you are going to sort of see the world and feel everything in your life in a much more vivid way, because you appreciate and you have that gratitude for things, not just constantly like working against you and blocking your mojo and, preventing you from moving forward. So I think we all have that ability to do that in whatever ways in our life. And I'm just so, so grateful that I'm still here and that I get to make music and make great friends like you doing very smart things like this wonderful podcast.
Quick interruption from our favorite sponsor, me, Kristen Ford. I am a band doula. If you want one-on-one coaching, take your music business to the next level, I want you to reach out right now. Don't wait. Do it now. Click the link below because I am nearly maxed out on taking new clients. So you're going to be waitlisted. It's been so much fun. We've got people playing Summerfest. We've got people releasing music videos, working with background dancers and different sync opportunities. And it's all flowing. It's every person's situation is different. And I love to be part of it. So if you think you want one-on-one music business coaching, click the link below and don't wait because I'm almost maxed out.
That hopefully can help all kinds of people in the music business.
Hey, at least I've been enjoying the conversations, if
There you
nothing
go.
else. But
With me, when you're just going to get one monologue after another, so you can just you have like a sound effect ready where it could be like, Rachel, take a breath.
no, you're the guest. I'm glad that you are on the other side of that, and I am so sorry that you went through that.
Thank you.
That
So many silver
intense moment.
linings, like constantly, even discovering new ones all the time.
Is that where the song "It's Good to Be Alive" came from?
Oddly enough, that song had already been written and it came out, I think it was on my album Myopia. And I wrote it inspired by the great Frida Kahlo, who is one of my favorite artists and certainly, is known for her artistry, but also for her resilience and for kind of putting her physical obstacles into the content of her work. I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't really know how to sing it. I didn't connect with it as deeply until after my cancer experience. And this is just a fun little anecdote that right after my last treatment, I went with my mom to the Brooklyn Museum where they were having a wonderful exhibition of Frida's personal artifacts, as well as her beautiful paintings. So things like her corsets that she wore to correct her injuries, and she painted on them herself, just like looking in a mirror, and just all her different artifacts and day-to-day objects. So that was really inspiring, and it made me want to put that song in my set again.
Well, and I love that when you get like winks from the other side, or
Yes,
it feels like she was playing with you, like don't forget about that song we made together.
that's so true. What a brilliant way to put that. I love that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not convinced that time is happening linearly. I think we experience it as
I'm not
linear,
either.
but especially when you get those uploads, like John Driscoll Hopkins, who has been diagnosed with ALS and started Hop on a Cure to defeat ALS. He wrote this amazing album before his diagnosis, all about leading his children and like his own mortality and the unknown. And it was like, I'm sure he didn't know where those songs came from at the time, but then later on the timeline, it's like it plays out. And that's so interesting that It's Good to Be Alive. You felt like, I'm not sure I can really fully sing this song. And then it came back around. And then even the wink from Frida at the museum to say like, this song still needs to be played. It's still relevant. It's one of my favorite songs in your set. But I wanted to ask you about, as someone who's running an independent record label, I think one of the challenges I had in my experience was I thought once I get signed, that's it. Like I've finally got help because I've been a DIYer so long, and that's it. You've been mentioned in the New York Times. You've charted on Billboard. You've won awards. You did a Paste live studio recording that was really gorgeous. And,
Well, thank you.
you've had so many big breaks. And then as a label, you're creating opportunities for others. So what do you think is the biggest thing that artists misunderstand about what labels can do for them, and what can artists do for independent labels?
What an amazing question with so much scope to it. First of all, I am sorry that you had that misconception about, signing being a kind of end all be all. I will say that I had the opposite sense about it, mainly because I was offered a major label deal in my 20s, and the circumstances around it were so counter to what felt right and instinctive to me as an artist and as a person. When I actually looked at the paperwork and the terms were floating around, that I couldn't do it. Now, maybe years later I could have, but at that point in my life, it just didn't feel right. All the changes that needed to be made to the music, to my vibe, my persona, all of it, I was just, more than anything, I was just afraid I was going to lose who I was if I went down that. So that kind of helped me double down with, MPress Records, which I had only just recently started. And it was because of that, and this, that Ani DeFranco had also invited me to tour with her early on. So I had this kind of stamp of approval from one of my favorite artists in the form of Ani encouraging me. But that wasn't why I didn't go the major label route. It was really for other very concrete reasons. That said, I knew from the get-go that labels it's just like parents are people. You know how we joke about that? Parents are just people, making mistakes and like they're doing their best. Labels are just people too. Like if I'm a label and I'm the head of the label and people are asking me for things, or they're pinging me at 1 a.m. and, my phone is off, or maybe it's on, but I was like not super thrilled to be reached that at that point, like I'm going to behave like a normal human and like I'll be fallible and I'll always be refining my communication, whether it's with my artists or with my team members. So me having such a distinct awareness of how, labels are comprised of teams of people who individually have their own goals and passions has really enabled me to, I hope, to impart to artists on MPress that everything is about managing expectations. And sometimes that sounds like a dirty phrase, like, oh, so what you're saying is you're not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And it's not like that at all. I actually think managing expectations together is one of the healthiest, most positive, and kind of encouraging parts of the process of building a team and working with a team. And I've also experienced that working with agents, where I signed with an agent and I thought, okay, now I don't have to do anything. When in reality you're almost going to have to work harder, because you're not only managing your own sort of drive and ambition and hopes and dreams, but also the materials that that person needs to pitch you and to do their job in the way that feels authentic for both of you. And then you're also a cheerleader now for that person. And then you're also going to try to remember their birthday so you make them feel good. They smile when they pick up the phone and they're talking to you. It's another relationship. And I have a lot of these types of relationships in my life. And I think I just try to approach each one just like I would a friendship, And I think the person who taught me the most about that in my own life and career was a fellow you may know named Derek Sivers, who founded CD Baby. And just really early on, knowing him as a buddy, watching him found this company that ended up mushrooming into the, company that distributed independent artists and then eventually letting it go. He always
It
had
was sold
time.
to disc makers. Is that correct?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
But he was such a people person, and he was so great at making everyone feel like their time was valuable. What they had to say, to share, to ask was important. But he also was really good at business and drawing boundaries and all these things we talk about so much now, where an hour can go by and maybe you've been chit-chatting with someone. If you know in advance you have to cut that off in half an hour, you'll be able to graciously say, I have this amount of time. I'd love to chat down what we're going to do for radio for you, or what we're going to do for your cover art or whatever. And then it doesn't, there's no disconnect. There's no, misaligned expectations. So I don't know if that's helpful for your question, but
Oh, it's super helpful. And I think
time. Yes, it's all about time.
learning, yeah, learning multiple aspects of your career, once you have someone helping you to do them, it's almost like now you are a manager and you are managing every single person.
Mhm.
So, like, if the artist gets a team and someone's managing them, then they're managing the manager.
Yes, you're the team leader for your own project. And I think that's actually ideal. I've been in the opposite situation and it was frightening. I mean, the swiftness with which your own creative vision can get away from you
Mm,
if you're not leading all of that in some capacity, no matter how demurely you're doing it, if that's your, be a sort of a soft type of manager or, a stronger one. It's all about getting everybody on the same or similar page, but also listening to everyone's creative ideas while knowing that respectfully you have the final say. It's your art, it's your baby, So that's the main thing. And I try to, of course, remember that on behalf of our artists. So for instance, if Grace Pettis, who's with Empress, or James Mastro, present particular artwork and it's different from what we expected or maybe where we thought it might go, everything just becomes a conversation, that's had with grace and patience and open-mindedness, and that'll get you pretty far, I think.
wow, that's amazing. And it's like artwork, that's something that's been around since, 1996 when you started this label. And that's something that's still important today, even though it might be this like thumbnail. If they're going to see it, gosh, I have so many questions for you, but
That's
if
why
we
I
can
said if
go
you need
way
the
back,
bell and you need to just like be like, Rachel, wrap this up.
well, I think it's because like Aries hit Chiron or something.
Mhm.
I'm all woo woo. I'm wearing one of these bracelets you actually gave me on tour,
I love that so
you
much.
know, with the rocks and the crystals and the energy. So what you
Mhm.
talked about in an interview when you were 2, you went out to see Oklahoma on Broadway with your mother, and then you came home and just started plunking out the melody on the piano, even
Mhm. That is
though
a
you
true
hadn't
story.
been shown it. Um, you play piano like someone where it's in their soul. It's just gonna come out.
Well, it takes one to know one, Kristen, with you on
Thank
guitar,
you.
so
But
but
I
it
wanted to just
that
ask,
doesn't happen overnight. Like, I played it badly with, like, 2 fingers, and then a year later, it was decent. So we just wanna depict that, you know, reasonably for your
yeah,
listeners.
but I think, as children, our inner child knows, there was little baby Rachel Sage at 2 years old was like, I desire to create music
Yeah.
and here's an outlet and I'm going to make it. And then all of the weird beliefs and things that we pick up along the way. But I just wanted to ask about, do you believe in past lives, or like your soul made some kind of
Mhm.
agreement to be like, this is going to be the family of origin and this is going to be the time, it's going to be the downfall of CDs and the rise of Napster, and now it's going to be TikTok, and I chose all these challenges.
Wow. Well, a lot of the former, not so much of the latter. So, like, we'll go back to baby me at 2.5, at Oklahoma. There definitely was a spirituality to it for me, and I remember soon after that having very vivid dreams and, my sister has kind of teased me about this because it was probably my first invocation of a godlike entity in my life, and you made that naive choice to tell her at a young age that I was, excuse me, having these dreams. And she was 3 years older than me. So that didn't go so well. But I remember telling her that a little man from outer space just floating around was telling me that I had this ability to make up these songs and that this would somehow be important and that I should keep doing it. And I pictured like outer space and like a being. And I would wake up with this awareness. I started having these dreams like 3, 4, 5 years old, and it was reality for me. It wasn't even like, what does this all mean? It was just, this was what was happening while I slept. And then I would wake up with this kind of confidence that no matter what else was going awry in my young life, and many things were, you know, ballet hurt my knees, and, other little girls were picking on me at school, and I was, learning about what bullying was, and that I was probably experiencing it, but I could go to the piano and, like you suggested, just kind of fulfill what felt very early on like my destiny, if you will. And I'm sure there's a wonderful Yiddish word for it that I should have looked up, so I would have had it for you, Kristen, about purpose and having a purpose in life. But I was very fortunate that once it was clear that my purpose was going to be creativity and art and music in whatever capacity, that was, reasonably encouraged. It wasn't discouraged. I think the folks were worried, but they were also keenly aware of who I was from a young age.
Hmm. That's great. That's a great response to that. And I wanted to ask about some of the healing work I'm doing right now is trying to think
Mm.
about my relationship around money and think about my relationship around what it means to work. Because I
Yes.
grew up believing that money is scarce, money is hard to make, you need to work very hard. And I think a byproduct of that was I always only worked all the time and I would never take a break. So sometimes I would like, oh, I'm gonna get drunk now, so at least I can, like, take a break, even though I'm still gonna work. And for
Yeah.
you growing up, what was your lens around money and around work?
Well, I've confided this to you before, but you know that I was very much encouraged, required maybe is a more accurate word, to go to a particular type of college and university as quote unquote something to fall back on, even though it was very clear that I was going to be a musician in some capacity. And that's what I really wanted to do for my work. So in hindsight, I do wish that I had, had the opportunity to go to a music or music business slash music focused school, and or even an art school in some capacity, a conservatory, if you will, for grown-ups. Because I think that the mindset of something to fall back on is really counterproductive when you know at a young age that you seriously want to pursue a career in the arts. I know for me personally, it created a lag between when my sort of peak of youthful ambition and idealism was happening around my teens and early 20s, and then sort of waiting it out until I had this piece of paper like the Indigo Girls, you know, have sung so beautifully about in Closer to Fine. I mean, I really identified with that song. And then by the time I got to New York, I was like a little bit, to use one of your favorite phrases, a little burned out on this idea that I had been earning this piece of paper so that I could make more money doing something that would support the music. And I actually think that was a big mistake. And, my parents did their best. They did what they thought was best for me. But I think they would be the first ones now, because we all grow and learn, to acknowledge and concede that that wasn't the right path for me. So when I got to New York, I was just like feeling a full on hustle and pressure. And I actually started working in the jingle business almost
Mm.
immediately, kind of wove my way into that. And I wrote jingles for a whole bunch of commercials, and I did voiceovers. And that was what paid my rent for a whole bunch of years. So, and it was a dirty
In New
secret.
York City?
Yeah, and we weren't allowed to talk about it then. Whereas now with the advent of syncs and, everybody knowing what that is, even like people who aren't in music know what a sync is, and that whole phenomenon, now it's kind of considered okay. But back then when I was like, an emerging artist trying to get on the Lilith Fair and, throwing myself into one performance opportunity after another, just trying to establish myself as a musician, nobody would have wanted to know that I was writing music for Crystal Light or the Dairy Association or whatever else. But looking back, I have a lot of compassion for that young person who was so, feeling like she had to hide what she was doing around money to be able to put out, my first album or pay a band a couple $100 to play with me at the bitter end. And I don't think that was really right, but I do think that that has evolved. So, I think were I in that situation now, I'd probably be excited to share that and not proud of it necessarily, but just okay with it rather than feeling like almost shame about that.
Wow, yeah, no, things definitely have changed a lot where it used to be you'd never see like a, Rolling Stone song in a car commercial, and now it's just kind
Yeah.
of like, yeah, of course it's there. So you describe your songs as emotional mirrors for your life, and I also think you're a Scorpio, and they are known for being kind of mysterious. And I'd just be curious, like, what is going on behind the curtain? Like, are you just like, oh my God, this song has to come out? Or are you someone who schedules out, okay, I'm going
Mm,
to be creative during this time and see what happens. And now I have a deadline and so I have to do it. Or are you just like, oh my gosh, I have a huge collection of paintings. I should do a showing, or I have a huge collections of songs. I should do an album. Like,
mhm.
what's the inspo and how does that all work?
Great question. Process. It's changed enormously from when I was young to now. Um, these things used to just fall out of me constantly. It was like the way I was moving through the world was I was making stuff to kind of feel sane. So when
Mm,
other younger artists tell me that that's how they're doing it, or I'm working with artists like that, I completely relate and empathize. And everything you do feels like it's the most important thing you've ever done. And you also want feedback on a lot of it all the time. I think now I have a clearer sense of when something is really clicking, and I think it will be, a valuable piece to perform live or to add to the tour repertoire versus just maybe for myself and it goes in the treasure chest of expression. Some people might call that like filtering. And there's something to the idea of not judging what you do and just doing it and being so free about it. But I also feel that now that my time is more limited to be creative, it's helpful to have that kind of self filter. So, like, I'll feel something percolating and I'll maybe quickly get the idea out. And then I'll kinda be like, I don't know. I don't know that that song needs to be in the world right now." And I'm
mm,
okay to put it
mhm.
away. I don't necessarily have to chase that particular muse further. Whereas, for instance, last night, I started arranging part of a song that I'd written on a recent tour in the UK that I really felt was like something important for me to say, to get out, and that might relate the other people might relate to and might also be a really positive message for right now in this cultural moment. So I made a point to shut off my phone. I even went so far as to put it in the other room because we all know the temptation of phone addiction and to just tell myself, like, I'm going to give myself the next 2 hours to work on this song because it's not just coming out whole. There's some craft that's going to happen, and I'm going to have to write a bunch of bad verses to get the one that feels right. And I did that, and it's almost done. And now I'm really excited you know, to play it at my next gig or whatever. But yeah, a little of each, I guess. You got to light the
Yeah.
candles and summon the muse, but also allocate the time and the quietude for sure. If you're ADHD like me, to get it done, to actually see it through.
Wow. Yeah. That's
Does that
great.
resonate with you, Kristen?
It does. I'm actually like diving into my next full length record.
Mhm. That's
There's
exciting.
so many songs. It is exciting. I probably have like 20 or 30 song ideas that it's like,
Mhm.
okay. And then maybe I need to go ahead and write something. Like maybe it's not even been written yet. I wanted to talk to you about your Take in the Good Rainbow Mind X, Rachael Sage. So, what's this new project and some merch people can pick up right now, right?
Yes. So Rainbow Mind is a wonderful UK based LGBTQ plus organization that focuses on mental health and mental well being for the community. And it's unique in that all of the staff and the care providers are also queer. And I think that that is unusual. So it's a very, very safe space. They have all kinds of wonderful programming, everything from movement based therapies to just providing free actual, therapy to people who need it. And I connected with them when I was on tour in the UK, and they invited me to design a t shirt, which has also now been printed on sweatshirts and tote bags, and that is available. Um, you can find it on their social media, my social media. And I'm also going to press up some and have them along my upcoming tour. So that's very exciting. And, I
Sweet.
love the arts and crafts. So anytime I can arts and craft for good,
I
and the
know.
phrase taking the good. I was like, what is that? What does that mean?
Mm,
And they had to kind of lay it out for me. And I think we do often have the tendency to, create anxiety and worry as just a natural defense mechanism. Like the other shoe is about to drop.
mhm,
And to be present and to be able to actually take in the good, like the beauty,
mm,
the
mhm.
positivity, the joy. We talk about queer joy, it's so important, it's so precious, and it's also under so much continual duress that being able to put, a frame around it and say, take that moment, take that hour, take that day out of your week to just acknowledge how fabulous you are, how important you
Mm.
are, that, you are magic. I mean, just to boil it down to a sageism there.
Yeah, it's so easy to miss those moments too when there's constantly you giving your energy to other people around you
Mhm,
and you have your phone and, all the things that come along with that. I
mhm.
wanted to ask you about, you know, we have so much going on in the world right now in terms of the rise of fascism in America. You talk about doing things for the LGBTQ community. I mean, right now, trans folks are under what we call a paperwork genocide, where, like in Kansas, it's not legal for them to drive without changing their gender. And I've sometimes found that as an artist who is queer, biracial, I also, I'm married to a woman, I'm a lesbian.
Happy Lesbian
Sometimes
Visibility Day, by the way.
is it really?
It is. Mazel tov.
420 is
Yep.
Lesbian Visibility Day? Okay,
Now you
I
know.
get to check off 2 of those boxes then. But I find sometimes it's like, if I wanna speak out about an issue, then I'm all the way over here, where another thing is like, I just wanna make music for people, and I've toured very red places, and you released the song "I Made a Case" featuring
Mhm.
Howard Jones, and, that was distributed by MPress, your independent record label, and also Universal Virgin. And I was just curious, what does involving yourself with these larger distribution networks or tying yourself to artists like the who's who that was on your record, and you and Kelly met at your violinist met at Folk Alliance, what, like 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
now she's playing with some household names in bigger and bigger rooms and just, oh my god, did I lose it? I
No,
don't know if
no,
I
no,
lost
I
the
got
question.
it,
Did you
I
get it?
got it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So you're
Great.
asking, like, what's it like to be in bed with majors? Is that
Yeah.
what you're asking?
Yeah,
I would
totally.
say that I'm not really. I'm, like, still in the hallway, like, I'm still in the same hotel, but I'm not, you know, because we work with their distribution arm, but I don't know that it's substantively, like, any different from working with The Orchard, with whom we've worked before, and we love working with them, or Absolute UK. Distribution is its own thing. It's not a label, and you know, it could become that if you hit a certain kind of sales threshold. That potential is always there in theory,
Hmm.
but I don't think that Empress has necessarily come dangerously close to those benchmarks. So for now, there are wonderful distribution partners. And, again, it's relationships, it's people. Do we have the right up to date person for this or that? If not, let's figure out who they are. Let's make sure they get a copy of our, monthly news, our buzz newsletter of what's going on with myself and with our other artists. And let's invite them down to the shows. And when they can't come, you know, invite them next time, or just wish them a happy Easter, like whatever it is.
Mm,
All of these are just people, it's like, and I think
yeah.
it's kind of risky to lump anyone into like a group of big, small, good, bad when you're actually trying to do business with them. It's not that helpful. And at the end of the day, you know, that Derek Siversism, that guy from CD Baby, he always used to hammer home this idea of imagining what you're writing or your voice on the phone, to the other person from their point of view. It's like empathy 101, but in a very
Mm,
music business tiered way. Like, imagine that maybe they've had a crappy day and they don't want to be opening another email. What can you do to brighten their day with your brief but poignant email? Or maybe call them sometime just to say hi and not because you want something. Like, all of these
mm.
basic kind of ways of being in the world that I find help my friendships, my other relationships. If you can apply those to business, I think it's going to be a more positive experience for everyone involved. And then people want to show up for you because you've been showing up for them in a capacity.
Wow. I feel like you just gave me a completely new perspective in some ways because I've been seeing the gate. I've been seeing the gate and I've been trying to bash that fucker down or find a
Hmm.
key or find someone who has a key and I could borrow it and open that
Mm.
gate. And you're seeing the human being on the other side of it, where
I'm
it's really
seeing
not
that
an issue of
maybe,
the gate.
yeah, maybe there is,
It's
maybe
that
nobody knows
human
where the
being.
key is. Like, maybe everybody's just like hopping over that fence with whatever energy they have. Maybe they don't even know if they'll have their job tomorrow. Like, but even if they don't, they'll end up somewhere else. And, there is that cliche of like, be nice to the people on the way up. Of course you and I always would. We're nice people, but you'd be amazed by how
I don't know about
frequently
me all the time.
you are. You stand up for yourself, but those two things are not divergent.
Hmm. Wow. Well, you have some tour dates in the UK coming up, and that's
I
been a
do.
market that you've been touring, over your long and amazing career. But you had talked about in an interview that the Beatles were super influential to you and that your dad played them a lot. And you also won the John Lennon songwriting contest. So, what was winning that contest like? And what is a tour in the UK like recently? And what do you have coming up?
Ooh. Yeah, I was always a trier. I was one of those people who never really feared, like, what happens if I don't get in? If I audition for the part in the musical and I don't get in, like, which is what almost always happened. I just wanted to have the experience of being heard, being considered. So that's what contests always were for me in my teens and 20s. I don't really do them too much anymore, but the John Lennon songwriting contest was one that I'd submitted to a bunch of times. Ironically, the song that won, won in the rock category, and I'm not exactly rock, but
Let's go.
my good friend Jo Davidson had helped me record that, and she had a particular vision, with the sound of it. And then an old friend, Rich Pagano, who has been in the Beatles tribute band Fab Four for many, many years and is a wonderful drummer. He helped us record it at his studio. So it was a really positive experience working with two friends, and I learned a lot from them. And then when it won, it was kind of like, what? Like, for real? It didn't win in like the singer-songwriter category. I just sort of blanketed them all. I was like,
Hmm.
something's going to stick. So it was, as we say, it was a hoot. And the coolest thing about it was getting a letter signed by Yoko Ono. And I am a big fan of hers too. I love her artwork. I love her performance art and just her whole sensibility walking in the world. So that was a thrill. Beyond that, it's been helpful to kind of be like a touchstone, even in foreign, in other countries. When I've been introduced by someone on stage, for instance, in Germany or the Netherlands, no matter how many years go by or whatever else I do, they'll be like, and this is Rachael Sage. She won the Johnson in Songwriter. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody loves the Beatles. And like you said, they really were, my biggest, youngest influence for sure.
Amazing. And then your experience of like UK audiences. I've never
Mhm.
toured the UK. I've toured Germany and France, Spain. I find Europeans very engaged listeners and a lot
Mhm.
less of the TV culture and all the bars, and that they don't have unlimited data even. So I don't know. What's your
Interesting.
experience been, that or in other ways?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I do have a tendency to rhapsodize and idealize UK and European audiences, but I want to be careful with that because I think in a way I may have done that to my own detriment. I
Hmm.
have now, built this wonderful career and beautiful following over there that has kind of come at the expense of me building something similar and sustainable in the US. And sometimes
Hmm.
that's just what you have to do, to get to a point where you recognize an imbalance. So what I'm thinking more about now is, not which countries are queuing into sports bars more, but, how can I help these listening rooms, venues, or other peer artists if I'm touring with them create an experience that captures the imagination, captures people's attention, and makes them want to come out and listen and come out and support us. So I look at it as a positive challenge, but yes, there is less promotional heavy lifting across the pond for sure. And I'm not
Hmm.
entirely sure why that is, but I do think there is more of a culture of going out and listening to live music. And some of that actually is because the pub culture is so strong over there, actually. It's sort of it's a short leap from going out to watch a game at the pub and drink some beers to going out with those friends to hear some live music. You know, I think here people just aren't going out as much, period, or like leaving their couches as much. So, there's challenges, but Europe, I haven't actually toured there in quite a while, but I will be there again next year. But yeah, the UK
Good.
is definitely my home away from home.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, America is a huge challenge for you hear it from artists from all over the
Yeah,
world when they're like, "But I need to
so
break
vast.
America."
I
And
know.
and then here it's so much. I mean, we just can only do so much touring. But I wanted to ask you about your album release cycle. So Canopy
Mhm.
came out in October
That's right.
2025,
After a
and
whole bunch of singles that I put out
you
separately.
waterfalled a bunch of singles, and this is also wild that you're the artist and you're the president of the label. I mean, how many staff members do you have?
We can name them. They deserve their
Okay, great.
flowers. We
Yeah,
got
yeah.
JoJo, who's our general manager at MPress. She's been with me many, many years, and she handles distribution and licensing and so many things. Production. Meredith Tarr, who is our fabulous tour manager and A&R, and she helps with websites and promotion and editing all my misspellings and beyond. Jill Richmond Johnson, who does our publicity and a lot of marketing. She's phenomenal. And then Dana on socials and digital media, who kind of keeps us in touch with what's happening now and, make sure that all of our classic retroisms are somehow relevant for, hopefully a broader audience than just our own peers. So it's a lot of talent there. And we've been working with this team for a while now. So it's, yes, I am the kind of fearless leader, but there are times when I genuinely want everyone's opinion and will probably lean on that more than my own if I think it's wise to do so. Like if I don't
Mhm.
think I am as in touch. And then there's other times where I'll pull everyone and I'll want that feedback and support. And what it does is it actually helps me know that I want to go the other way, because I feel this inner resistance maybe to what everybody else thinks that's the more sort of vox populi. And at the end of the day, it is, an artist run label. So, my aesthetic is all over it in a lot of ways. But of course, our other artists, from Seth Gleer to Melissa Farrick and Grace and James, Fragile Tomorrow, they have all been amazing to work with and sort of broadened our collective horizons business-wise and aesthetically.
I love that. So that was 5 full-time employees? 6?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's amazing. I Yeah, it's like thinking about the people behind these,
4.
literally labels. Okay, 4. 4, that's great. And then you wear about 6 hats, so we'll just tack it up to the lucky 7.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then so in terms of your album release cycle, Canopy, we toured together.
Mhm.
All told, I did 72 dates for Pinto. I think we probably did
Incredible.
30 or 40 shows together. We did a
Something like
lot.
that, yeah.
And then I peaked at number 51 on the college charts.
So
And then
exciting.
you, I think, did a little bit better. Did you get a number 1 in AAA on radio for Canopy?
No, but I think it was top 40, yeah. Like
Top 40,
39.
baby. That's amazing. And all the interviews, all the,
Mhm.
working with radio promoters, the packaging is so intricate. Like, how do you feel like these contribute to keeping a roof over your head and selling tickets to shows? And because I think that's another big disconnect that I had, which was, okay, once my album's out, it's actually kind of just the beginning of the work.
Yeah. Oh, that is true. It is the beginning of the work. I mean, I'm still promoting Canopy in particular ways, not as concertedly and not on campaign. So, yeah, the bulk of resources that I put behind the album campaign were last year. But I'm going out on the road with an artist called Wet 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 from the 80s in the UK next month, doing a whole bunch of shows with them. And this will still
Nice.
be the one that I'm promoting, and I will still be, like, at the merch table, like, "Come look at my beautiful package, and if you wanna see what my artwork looks like," and I'll be talking about it from the stage, because that is still gonna be the release through at least, the summer. I think it's everything all together. It really is this sort of 360 kind of a thing. It's songs that you're getting into film and television. It's songs that you put out years ago that are now just getting their stride. I just had a sync in a totally bizarre commercial.
Congrats.
Thank you. But I did not make it happen. It was like in a library, and you know how that goes. Like, someone decided to use it. And, but now it's up to us to kind of wave that flag that that's happening. Maybe capture that little bit of that commercial, put it on the socials, like talk about it on Instagram, talk about it on TikTok. If nobody knows it's happening, it's not going to be enough awareness from it just being seen on that station. It has to be people who actually care about and connect with your music, who are making those connections between what's happening in media, where you're playing, how they can support you, the things in life that you care about, that make you interesting to them. Seth has always been really, really great at this as well, getting his listeners on board
Seth Gleer.
with the things that he cares about. Yes, like, he's such an avid activist for the environment, and he really walks the walk, and he makes videos that talk about his emotions about all of that, or that shoot a dog running through a forest, like, I
Well, you're
think
not
that.
literally shooting a dog.
Yeah, no, filming,
Well,
filming, yes.
filming a dog
Yes, yes.
running through the
It's from the
forest.
dog's perspective. Things that seem like, and they're brilliant. And so, like, along those lines, I think, and you know a lot about this, there's what you think is going to happen, should be the story, and then the story that kind of evolves.
Hmm.
So, like, for instance, with you ending up on the freaking Kelly Clarkson show, and you were so ready for that. And you did such a wonderful job of sharing that behind the scenes experience with us. So we could cheerlead for you and feel like we were part of that journey. And I know you'll continue to do that. I, in some ways, may have dropped the ball on some of the Dance Moms listeners who first heard my music there
So
because
you
I
had
felt like
17 songs on Dance Moms, which was that on A&E
Lifetime. Yeah, it was on Lifetime.
time.
But it felt like I sort of outgrew the show in terms of age range and whatnot. So I kind of like put it aside. But this wonderful artist named Cassandra Kubinski, I don't know if you know her, you should have her on your show. She approached me about us potentially doing some stuff together because we both had our music on Dance Moms.
Hmm.
And, I'd kind of like left that behind, grateful, but that was then. And I'm re-embracing it, and I'm going to do some shows with her. We're going to do an acoustic album release together in June. And, while it may not be like my primary focus, I'm being really open to it because it's an energy and a story that came to me, and it continues to merit connection and conversation with the people who discovered my music on that show. So I don't know. I just feel like we have to be more flexible than we anticipate we will need to be when we
Hmm.
first, start out in this business while still keeping our integrity and our best selves intact. And if you can do that, that's success. Like, honestly, that is my definition of success.
There's so many great pieces of advice in what you just said as well, including using social media as a way to tell your story and also to let your supporters know what it is that you have going on.
Mhm,
Like, because they are not going to know that you are in a commercial that's on nationally right now unless they see it on your TikTok feed or
mhm.
something presented in an interesting way. Well, yeah, I think we're going to need to schedule another episode because there's just so much that I'd love to talk to you about. But I am going to leave you with our last closing
Aw,
segment here on Oberman Amplified. By the
love
way,
it.
like and subscribe if you haven't.
Yes.
Leave a comment, your favorite Rachael Sage song. Leave Me with a Smile. This is my grandmother's sheet music. You could actually probably play
It's
it
incredible.
on the piano, but I'd love a story or a joke that might leave us with a smile today.
A story or a joke that might leave you with a smile. Well, when I was 17 years old, I was a DJ at KZSU Stanford, and I had the chutzpah to pretend I had an interview scheduled with my favorite singer-songwriter so I could meet him backstage and say hello. And that artist was Mark Cohn. He was the nicest guy. I did actually interview him on a little tape recorder for the radio station. But more than anything, we met and we had a genuine interaction and we've stayed in touch. And then I got to open for him many years later. So pays to have
Wow, so
chutzpah.
how did you get the interview with him? You just
I
said you
just
scheduled
had
this?
nerve. No. I walked up to the Velvet Rope after the show where only friends and family were allowed to go backstage to say hello. And I went right to the front of the line and I put on my best, like, grown-up music business voice, talked to someone who was probably the tour manager. And I was like, hey, my name's Rachael Sage. I'm with KZSU in Palo Alto, California. And I would love to interview Mark for my station. And they had no idea it was like a college radio station or that I was like 17 or anything. And my partner at the time was just there like, oh, God, there she goes, because that's kind of how I am sometimes. But yeah, you got to make
That's
it
so
happen.
amazing.
Want
I
it.
love it. You got to have chutzpah. And then
Yeah.
just one last question that
Sure.
I think some listeners might be upset if I don't ask you is,
Mm.
are you signing any new artists? And if someone wants to be considered for getting picked up by MPress, the award-winning 30-year running independent label based in New York City, how can they get a hold of you?
Ooh.
Or not?
Yes.
Or tell them to fly a
it's
kite?
Okay. We are indeed celebrating our 30th anniversary this year, so it's a big, busy year. But our door is always open, and there's information at MPressRecords.com on our contacts page. We get all kinds of creative pitches. Some are a little zany. Some are, very organized and professional. And, it all brightens our day. So
Excellent.
give it a go.
Excellent. So
We'd
there
love
you
to hear
go,
you.
folks. And specifically, you tend to work within, I would say, indie, folk, pop, jazz
Yes.
style. So if you're a metal band or you do hip hop or dance music, maybe not a fit.
Maybe not. Although I cannot even tell you how many voicemail messages we get from hip hop artists who seem very keen to be on MPress Records. So obviously they haven't really listened to what we release, but sometimes it is entertaining.
That's the grind. But I think that's also what we talked about with you're seeing the human being answering the email. So you better learn who that human is. Whereas I think for many of us, when we're trying to get on the other side of the gate, it's how many gates can I try to bust down? How many doors can I knock on?
Yeah.
I ain't got time to listen to everything because I'm going to get them
Yeah.
all.
Yes. And
But that might not get you signed.
It's true. Ultimately at the end of the day, it is so subjective, and, it certainly doesn't hurt to have wild and crazy Instagram numbers, but what hurts even less is if your music doesn't sound like anything we've ever heard before, and there's a beauty to it that kind of transcends our expectations and it surprises us in some way. So I'll leave you with that.
Rachael Sage, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an
Thank you for
absolute
having
pleasure.
me. Thank you. You too.